So President Trump has pulled, dozens of security clearances for former and current officials. We've been talking about that. Joe Biden, for example, and then also his former Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, current officials, Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA here in New York, Leticia James, speaking of New York, the state AG. And also on that list is, as you see, Mark Zaid, a national security attorney. He's defended FBI agents who investigated January 6th, been involved in a lot of cases related to the government, but has been working with the government. He joins us now, right? Am I getting this right? And then, so you had your security clearance revoked as well. Could you tell us how it happened, how you learned all of that?
Sure. I have received nothing from the U.S. government. I know only what the New York Post reported on Saturday, and I started to get phone calls from colleagues, friends, journalists asking for anything further. And so in the next 48 hours since, still no word from anyone. And I understand other journalists who have tried to get the White House to even confirm it haven't received anything. I appreciate in the way you put the list, because if you look at Fox News, other news media, it says these names of all the Democrats who have had their clearances revoked. And to quote Seinfeld, not that there's anything wrong with it, I'm not a Democrat. I've never been a Democrat.
So, you tell us your work for people. You've worked on, well, I mentioned a January 6th case, but weren't you involved in the Ukraine whistleblower case?
No.
And tell us about some of your work that would be government related and what I'm sure you've been thinking about this, what might have led to this being revoked.
Oh, we know what led. Look, I've been practicing law for 30 plus years as a national security lawyer. I represent Republicans and Democrats at the highest levels of government in every administration. I challenge illegality and unethical behavior that just happens to be, hey, more of it in the Trump administrations. But what brought me to their ire in particular, as according to the New York Post, was my representation of the IC, the intelligence community whistleblower, in 2019, 2020, whose complaint led to the first impeachment of President Trump. Now, I had nothing to do with the impeachment. That's a political act. I only made sure that we protected the whistleblower. And I'll point out that the following year, I represented the highest level whistleblower this country has ever seen within the Department of Homeland Security. And the Trump administration gave me a higher level security clearance to represent that case. So strangely, to go back a year prior to revoke my clearance based on that act, even though throughout the entirety of the Trump administration, and in fact, the last almost 25 years, I've had a security clearance without any issues.
So say that you're kind of an interesting case because it's different than, say, President Biden, right? A former president had a security clearance. Okay. You could, in the future, say someone is in a similar situation or something comes up and they call you because you have the experience in the field and say, all right, Mark, we want you to represent us, right? We want you to represent me or whoever's in this situation because you have the experience. Then what? Would you just not be able to do it, or would you have to go through another, you would apply again? Do you know?
So thankfully, very few cases require a security clearance.
Right.
So the reality is this is not going to impact me much at all.
Well, in your day-to-day, like it won't impact your earning
day-to-day
potential, your day-to-day.
Right.
But to your point, that because very few cases required, very few people probably have the experience to deal with it. So say something did come up, then what would you do?
I'll give you, I wouldn't be able to do it. So for example, I'm a spy lawyer. I mean, most people don't, what does that mean? I'm an employment lawyer, but I represent spies, people who work at the Central Intelligence Agency. The folks who are covert, meaning it is illegal for them to reveal where they work, those people would normally come to me, and then I could talk to the CIA about whatever the personnel security issue is that has nothing to do with politics, day to day. But I wouldn't be able to do that in this case.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.